Hey, welcome to my podcast. It all worked out. This episode is gonna be in English, so something different. I have today a guest, Elina, who is my dear sister in law, and she's a numerologist, amazing numerologist, and she's just now launching her new numerology calendar. So you should definitely go check that out as well. But how would you introduce yourself?
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. This is so cool. I'm so excited because this is the first episode for you in English, so I can finally understand all of the all of the wisdom that you're sharing on this podcast. But yes, I think the way that you just named me, I am your sister-in-law, and I am a numerologist, and I think that those two things pretty much sum it up very well. I'm also a dog mama to this little Maltese girl named Sky.
Yes, she's now sleeping next to us on the
Yes,
sofa,
just right here.
just chilling. Okay, today we're gonna talk about manifestation as usual. We're gonna discover what are the two biggest manifestations that you have manifested. But before that, I would love to hear and like share your story as well to the world. How did you get into like spirituality and manifestation? How would you describe like what happened?
Yes, it definitely wasn't this one moment where everything changed, but it was multiple moments where everything gradually changed. And essentially, when I look back at it all, during high school, I was always interested in yoga. I actually read my first numerology book cover to cover when I was 14.
Mm.
But none of it was actually deeply spiritual, to say. It was just something I was interested in. And actually, I would say that my first kind of spiritual awakening was when I believe I was maybe 11 or 12. And I know that you know the story of me. It was, so I come from a family where at that time my sister was really small, but me and my brother were training in a professional level. What this means is that basically every single day we had our training. So I was doing ballroom dancing, he was doing ice hockey. So meat was a very big part of our family. It was like for breakfast, well, maybe not always, but like lunch and dinner, you would always serve meat. And we were at this summer cottage at our friends, and I just remember I saw just how the meat was being cooked on the fire. And since then, I couldn't eat it anymore. I can't explain it. Like, it just clicked, and for me, and it's gonna sound weird, but for me, it felt like eating Alina's leg, the same as it would be like eating some animal's leg. That's how it clicked for me, and to this day, it still does. I did still eat chicken for a bit because I don't know. It was just, I think that that also shows us how commercialized animals are. That it's, yeah, it took me a while to kind of just rewire that and also let the chickens be. But yeah, that was the first one. And then after that, I believe it wasn't there at all in my day to day. And then when I moved to Finland and met you, I think that your influence, even if it's with words or without, was very big for my journey.
Aw.
Definitely very big for my journey. And that's when I also started listening to Tony Robbins, also a 4 hour work week. What was it? Tim Ferriss, all of those. So that's how I get more into like self-development. Then I had a really rough year of my life professionally. That's when I went into meditations and praying, because we always pray when the plane is
Yeah.
crashing, never before, right?
Mm.
Then suddenly everyone's a believer.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would say that it's been like a gradual steps like that. And then last kind of something similar to my meat story was after I broke up with my ex-fiance.
Mm.
I had similar kind of dreams appearing and things like that. So yeah.
So beautiful, and like I want to touch upon a little bit about the fact that you told about the when you became a vegetarian, and I think that's like immensely powerful to be at that age in that kind of surroundings. Like the people who were surrounding you, your family, they were definitely not supporting you on that. So you had to be really strong to stay like stand your ground and like believe in what you knew was true. So I think that's like immensely powerful, and I'm so glad to hear that I have influenced you too.
Are you surprised?
Well, not that much, but I'm very happy to hear that anyhow. Because I remember like in the beginning when I started to go more and more, like I was raised in a very spiritual family, but like this was very different what I kind of got into than what I was like kind of thought back home before. Like of course there are like nuances to it, but yeah, anyhow. But yeah, I remember my spiritual awakening was like straight to the
deep end.
Yeah, deep end. And I was just like, the funny thing was that whenever like I would talk about these things to you, I knew that like you were not agreeing with me in the beginning, but like you weren't judging me. So I felt safe. Like you were a safe place for me to talk. Like in a way, I knew that you were like sometimes like, oh okay, yeah, sure, but I was like whatever. And funny thing, I was like, she'll get there. Like I know, like she will one day. She will be here where I am, in that way. So, so lovely to hear your side of the story as well. But yeah.
Yes, actually, like I remember you sharing me things, and like you really went, because I think that when I met you, you already were in it, right? Or was it during the time?
It was definitely during. Like I remember when we met almost straight away when I met my partner, your brother. Yeah, back then, like, I have always like believed in God, something higher power. Like definitely that was something like very innate in me. But like my awakening only started like slightly before the COVID, I think.
What was it for you like?
I think like first I got very depressed. I wouldn't say that I was like, depressed, but I was very like down in my mind, like in a dark place. And somehow there was a year where a lot of things like happened, and then my mom kind of saw through that pain, and she had gotten into hypnotherapy already before me, and she had made a lot of like changes during that time, and I saw like a complete shift in her. And then she bought a course for me, a hypnotherapy course for me. I have talked about this in a previous episode as well, but yeah, anyhow, she bought a course for me, and then that basically like I was like, wow, okay, manifestation is real, and like everything just clicked in a way. That was the beginning for me.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Because I remember, yeah, you would always talk about obviously all of the things that would come up, and some of them would be super inspiring for me, and some of them I just didn't understand at all.
Yeah.
I think the best way to describe it is if you've ever read the Cooper's book. Is that her name? The one
Diana Cooper.
Diana Cooper.
Yeah.
Yes. If you've read that book without fully feeling what it is that it's actually talking about, then that's how it felt for me at the beginning.
Yeah. And we're talking about she has a lot of books. So the book, what was the name? The Life in the Fifth Dimensional World, like something like that.
Yeah.
It's a yellow covered book. So yeah, that's I totally understand. And if anyone has read it, will understand what you mean by that. But yeah, I think, are we ready to dive into the first big manifestation of yours? Are you ready to?
Yes, but maybe one more point that you mentioned that I wanted to touch upon is that when I had this meat story part of my life, this isn't so beautiful at all, but indeed, actually, and like my mom, my dad, Obviously, like my siblings didn't care that much about it, but
Mm.
like my parents didn't understand it at all. At that time, being vegetarian was not that popular whatsoever. I remember it was the time when in Australia veganism was super popular, and that was my source of inspiration at that time as well. There was this Bonnie in Australia posting videos about mango and ice creams and all of that, but I got a lot of clash from my parents. Just simply because they were, worried about what it is that I'm gonna eat. Right now, my mom is also a vegetarian, by the way.
And your little sister is a vegan.
And my little sister is a vegan, yes. But yeah, sometimes it's not a very smooth journey, but it's part of the journey.
Yeah, definitely. And I need to, now that you brought this up again, I need to say that I need to really thank you for your work because, like, when I met your brother, my partner, all of the guys before was like, because I'm a vegetarian as well, and I have been my whole life a vegetarian, and thanks to my mom and dad. So I never had to make the decision and pave the way. But yeah, all of the guys that I had met before was like, oh my god, you're really a vegetarian, like blah blah blah. But when I met my partner, he was like, oh, you're a vegetarian, okay? And I was like, what is happening here? And I asked like, how are you so chill about this? And he was like, oh, my sister is a vegetarian. And then actually that time your mom also turned, and your little sister, I think maybe before that even.
Yeah, she's been vegan for a long time now. Yeah.
Yeah, but funny thing, like, your brother didn't know that your little sister was vegan at the time. He just thought that you were a vegetarian, but yeah, that's how guys are. But
there's one crazier.
yeah. Okay, so your first manifestation story, or the biggest one that you feel like sharing today?
I think that I wouldn't say it's the biggest, as in like the biggest. I would say that it's the most interesting one for sure.
Oops.
Yeah, see, that's how interesting it is. The mic is going away. Yeah, so basically, it was right after COVID. I went through this, as I mentioned, this harder patch with my professional life, having moved to a completely new country, not necessarily knowing how the jobs work here, but I survived that. So after that, I felt like I can survive anything. This is also when I started really learning more about self-development, manifestation, and obviously, I got a new job, I moved into a new place, so all that's missing was a new partner. So I manifested my partner back at that time. Why I say it's the most interesting manifestation, because they say always, like, be careful what you manifest, and that is exactly the example of how not to manifest. Nevertheless, disclaimer, I'm very grateful for that experience. I learned immense amount of good and bad, but nevertheless, yes, this is how not to manifest.
I'm so excited for this story.
Well, it goes very simple. Yes, so what I did was exactly what they say, write down all of the characteristics that you want in your partner, and then write down all of the characteristics you don't want in your partner, and then write down how you want to feel with that partner. Now, for me at that time, what I feel like was, well, I would say mistake, but I don't believe in mistakes per se, but something I have learned from it is that when I wrote those things down, I didn't question where they are coming from. As an example, I wanted him to be this, this, and this. And one of the things that I wrote down is that, I wanted him to be smart, ambitious, all of those things. But also, I want him to have almost no friends. Like, my whole thinking was that with my previous partners, they were always incredibly social with large groups of people, like friends. And for me, that was always a point of uncomfortableness, not the word, but like I was just feeling like it's adding so much pressure for me to be a certain way. Like, I need to be good friends with his friends as well. I need to be liked by his friends as well. That's so important. It's not. Like, I don't think it really is. Right now, I wouldn't believe that. But what I'm saying is that my requirements for what I was looking for the partner were coming from a wounded place. I
Yeah.
thought that, like, oh no, I just want a partner who doesn't have a lot of friends. But if you really dig deeper, it doesn't come from a place of like something healthy. It comes from a place where I'm like, because then I don't have to be a certain way.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is so important, and like, and I feel like here is why when we talk about spirituality, we don't only talk about manifestation, because there are so many like things that we need to take to account as well, like the shadow work, like the inner world, the rewiring your mind, from what place are we operating from, everything, like all of that.
Yes, that is so, so important because exactly as you said, like when we are manifesting something, but we don't actually know who we ourselves are and why are we putting so much value in those things that we want? Like, why do we want those things in the first place? If we don't dig deeper enough, it will just show up in our reality, and it already is, even if you have or don't have
Yeah.
a relationship. But for me, like maybe just to give a bit more insight into this relationship so that you can understand fully what I mean by my interesting manifestation, is that it went super quick. It happened at like this. I usually didn't go at that time to any parties, but a friend of mine invited me to go to a rooftop party. So we started talking. It was so smooth. It just felt so comfortable, straight from the point. We spent like a night driving around the city, going and looking at the city from the cliff, you know. Then afterwards, it just felt way too comfortable, way too fast. Then we went to Greece, I think 2 weeks in from knowing each other. In Greece, he proposed to me. I said no. Then a friend of mine, I think a week later, came from UK. So he arranged like a pickup from her for her. He arranged then a Michelin star dinner just for two of us. I got so many like flowers and gifts. I got proposed again 2 months in. Then I said yes. We moved in. So I know that now when you listen to it, it already sounds like, okay, yeah, this is such a toxic case and it's love bombing from
Yeah.
the first, and it definitely is. But when you are so focused on your manifestations and suddenly such magical things are happening in your life, you start believing miracles. And I
Yeah.
think social media doesn't make it much easier because that's the thing. Like when we see all those bouquets of roses, all of those, gifts all over the place, we feel so inspired and we feel like, oh, I actually want that as well. If other girls are having that, like, I also want it. But I'm not saying in all cases, but in a lot of cases, we really, really don't know the story behind it. And in my case, for example, I was so happy when I was receiving them. Now, afterwards, when I found out all of the things, I knew that those flowers weren't for me. They were for them, like for him to feel a bit better about the type of person he is. And this is just a disclaimer of like, I feel like not focusing so much on what we see on social media.
Yeah, this is so true and so important as well to talk about this, because the social media truly is so glamorized. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong about the flowers and all that, but it just needs to come from the right place and from the healed versions of ourselves, I would say.
Yes, exactly. And I feel like when we are doing these manifestations, it's good to add that yes, you want the flowers and you want the gifts and that's your love language. Like that's all absolutely fine. But if you put it as one of your top three priorities, then obviously you're not putting your values up there. You will get those flowers and you will get those gifts, but at what cost?
Yeah.
And when we are looking for a partner, if we are putting that as top three, and forgetting about connection, forgetting about actually deeply knowing the other person, forgetting about loyalty,
Yeah.
all of the other things that are just so important in relationship.
So true. So true. Thank you so much for sharing. And I know this is very like personal as well, so but I think this is so important to also share to other people as well, to kind of and to reflect on what to prioritize.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely. The thing is like,
Yeah, and actually like even though like I'm not saying that, for example, in your story there is nothing like wrong with it, because like you learned so much, you grew so much from that. Like I think in that point how you saw things, like you needed that in a way.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, before that, I could not accept gifts from men.
Well,
I
yeah.
remember we were in Greece and he wanted to buy me jewelry, and I was like, no, I can buy it myself, because I felt like I would have to give back something. Like I felt like
Yeah.
that would be some sort of an exchange.
Yes, oh my god, and this is so powerful, and I think like so many women are like this. Not maybe, I think women are slowly waking up to this, but like this is, I feel like in especially like here in the northern countries, women feel like this, that they need to give something back if they are receiving something, which is completely not true. Like completely, and I was like in the same space with like my partner before, one until I like realized like actually no, it doesn't work like that, that you
Yeah.
don't owe the other person anything for receiving
Yeah,
gifts.
that's exactly, that's like the wounded feminine. But it's just realizing and kind of becoming aware of like, okay, why do I feel like I have to give back? Why do I not feel deserving of just receiving? And I think it's beautiful when women can just receive, because we're women.
Yes.
That's
so
it.
so true. Okay, are you ready for your next story?
Yes, my next story, I would say my manifestation story to share, a completely different one, probably last year's trip to Vietnam, because it's just super simple. There is no
Yeah.
complexity as to my previous story. Very, very simple. Basically, throughout, this is my practice that I do weekly. Whenever I feel like I want to go on Pinterest, I just go on Pinterest. I don't overthink it. And I think that this is so important for manifestation, when we don't think about manifestation as a to-do list, but rather as a dream list. Because if you think about it as a to-do list, you're just limiting yourself, and your life is going to look exactly the same because you are manifesting exactly what's possible for you right now. And that's not manifestation. Like, I mean, that is manifestation, but it's not the manifestation everyone talks about. So yeah, I just go on Pinterest. I just click on the photos that I really like, that resonate to me. I don't research them. I literally just, whichever feels connected, I add it to my yearly board. And then usually what tends to happen is that some of the pictures just become so true that they could not be, like, you cannot even, you know, explain it. And that was with Vietnam as well. There was this one bridge that is like two hands, two big hands, the statue. And I had it on my board. I didn't know in which country this bridge is. I didn't know anything about it. All I knew is that at the beginning of the year, a friend of mine who is originally from Vietnam, she visited Latvia with me in autumn, so my home country, and she offered me to visit her home country, so Vietnam. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's just go. And she said, yeah, that she's going to leave at the end of the month. Yeah, and I decided, okay, why not? I will go as well. I didn't have any plan. I knew that also she had some family things to do, so it wouldn't be like she's with me the whole trip. And I've never been to Asia before, and I was like, you know what, why not? Like, I want to see Vietnam, I want to see Asia. I knew she's going to be there for a bit. And then when I was looking at my Pinterest board, exactly that bridge that I was at, it was in Vietnam.
That is so, I love that. And like I feel like that is the most the best like place to manifest from that feeling of flow, that you're not forcing anything. You're just like truly going to Pinterest and you're just like, oh, I love this, like I will just add this on my board. And that's the place when we're like leaving space for the universe, for the divine to also co-create with us, because the higher power is so much more wiser than we are. And when you are not limiting your manifestations in the way that you're putting like, okay, this, and I only want this, you know, you're not leaving any space for something even bigger to come through, or like what is meant truly for you. And when we are creating from that place of flow, we're just simply like creating so much more space to something even bigger.
Yes, yes. There is this beautiful saying that I read a few days ago, and it said, you cannot hear the God if you already know what you want him to say to you. And I think it's always so interesting how so many of us believe in God, but yet we don't trust him.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, exactly, our manifestations are so precise and accurate. And even, making that list of characteristics about your partner, the thing is, like, what you want right now is a mix of healed you and wounded you.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
Yeah.
Your partner might be like in the Sex and City, Charlotte York married a completely different guy. So sometimes you don't know actually who your partner is. And when you're focusing so much on something very outer instead of just alignment and flow, then those manifestations either don't come in at all, or they come in, but they come in with a bit of a lesson attached.
Yeah, this is so true and so important for people to know.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're done, right?
I think so. Probably, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your stories, and thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next episode.
Yes, thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.